I'm Diane from Millhouse Quilts, and today we're continuing on our scrap series. This time we are making a miniature out of a bigger original. Sometimes when you're done with the quilt, you have this beautiful pile of scraps that are all coordinated. You look at that pile and you think, oh, I should be able to do something else with that. This is one of our current favorites. It's called Mesmerize. It's by Basic Gray, and it's just a moody quilt. And you've got these optics that are created. You almost make a square, but you don't ever quite finish the square. And it's got this 3D effect of a square on a square on a square on a square. And we have had so much fun with this. Now another more retired sample was one of our buckle blocks from a couple years ago. And this is one where we used bright solid colors and then a white background. So if you'll follow me into our bargain room, we have White and Bright hanging on the wall. It's a Thangles program, it's a buckle block program where you make, this time you made 2 blocks every month, and we added the piece border on the binding on the outside. But again, when I got done with this one, I looked at this beautiful pile of scraps and I thought, oh, it's so fun together. Let's just see. The thought came into my head, let's see if we can make a miniature, but I honestly didn't know what size to use. This has 2 different sizes of half square triangles in it. So this is often the way I operate when I'm making a replica of something. If I don't know, I just start. So I went to the smallest pile of Thangles, the smallest package they have, and that's 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. And I thought, I'll try 1 block. If it works, and if it doesn't, I'll think of something else. So I made 1 block, and it worked. The proportions were right, so I knew that we could go on. So when we go back upstairs, you will see a miniature version of White and Bright. So here is our smaller version of White and Bright. And you can see that the 2 different sizes of triangles, the 3/4 size made the blocks, and the little half inch ones make these little corner blocks. So like I said, as soon as I knew that the block worked out, I knew we could do it. I went ahead and kept the same sashing. I used all the same fabrics. It's exactly as the original was. I didn't know for sure if the stripe would look too big to go with the little, but it doesn't. Because I think the depth of the solid colors carries the weight of the whole quilt. And the little squares along the side, they're not maybe all exactly the same size because my strip had to end up a certain size. So I don't think your eye will know if some are a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than some of the others. It's the point that counts, and it works out. Here is Mesmerize in progress. Here again, I was in love with the fabrics, and when I was done, it's all done in strips, and I had some strips left over, and then I had little bits of yardage of some of the fabrics, not much of some, and maybe this much of others. And I thought, I wonder if I could. Now I knew right away the key thing would be the background. Each of these blocks is 1 print, but the background, the alternating strip, is the same fabric in all of them. I didn't know exactly what size to do, but I decided to cut my strips in half. I didn't want to have to figure out the math for all the blocks, so I thought, okay, just start it and do it. So I knew the blocks started with squares. So that was easy. Cut 2 squares, sew those together. Then I measured that size, and I knew that was the size of the next block. And that was my safe way of making a block without having to trust that I might mess up on the math. So I made a block or 2, and it seemed to work pretty well. So then I looked at my 1/2 yard almost of background, and I thought, okay, this is what's going to limit me. How many strips of background can I get? And I figured I could get 3 blocks out of 1 strip. So I started going along, and then at the store I found a remnant of the background fabric, and I thought, aha, coast is clear. I'm not tied by anything anymore, because I was getting so much out of my strips I didn't even have to touch the extra scraps. So then I got out the pattern again and looked at it, and my plan, and I think I'm going to be able to complete it, I'm going to take the king size layout and use the king size layout in miniature. And I think it's going to end up about 48 inches square. I'm not exactly positive yet, but I think that's pretty fun. And when I say to people, I'm using the king size layout, they look at me like, what do you mean? And I said, no, but it's the blocks that go along. So stay tuned, and someday you'll see the final miniature version of the Mesmerize. Now down here we have, this is actually an older one, and this is one of the first ones I did. My mother-in-law made a quilt for each one of her grandkids. And after a while, as she got older, she would say to me, will you just go get some fabrics for me? And then sometimes she'd give me the scraps. Every kid got the same pattern. It was Trip Around the World. So this time, again, I liked the combination of the fabrics. I thought I had enough. So I made a miniature version of Trip Around the World. I don't even know which one of my nieces and nephews has this quilt, but it's been very special to me because I know that it was from one that she made. So whatever you've got, try it. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work, and you just have to take it and dump it in your scrap pile to be used for something else. But sometimes it's so fun if you end up with an exact miniature of what you started with. Happy quilting from Millhouse Quilts.